the first few lessons of the Adobe Photoshop Intermediate sections. So this section already assumes you know the basic tools, so we're going to dive right into more intermediate topics and the kind of more advanced intermediate things that you need to do as a graphic designer. So one thing that we're always tasked to do is remove an object from a particular photo for a lot of different reasons. So we're going to go over the Content Aware tool, but work our way through more advanced projects. So we're going to start off with something really easy just to kind of introduce you or reintroduce you back to the Content Aware tool. So we have a selection here. We want to remove the woman completely from the photo. So that seems almost impossible. We'd have to use the clone tool and slowly clone her out. Well, now there's the Content Aware tool for later versions of Adobe Photoshop. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make some kind of selection. If we don't make a selection at all, we go up to Edit. If we don't select anything at all and we go up to Edit, you'll notice that the Content Aware Fill option, which is what we need to do, is not available. So just make sure you make a selection. You can make it really rough with the lasso tool and or you can take that lasso tool, do a little bit more of a precise selection and take your time to slowly select her. You don't have to be perfectly accurate with the Content Aware tool. It's actually beneficial to not be perfectly accurate. If we were to do the Select Subject tool and select right up to the line, sometimes it doesn't always replace all the pixels of her. So what we're going to do now is, now that we have everything selected, and go to Content Aware Fill. And it's going to pop up with a new window. And everything that's green is where the Content Aware tool is sourcing or sampling the pixels to replace the woman. So all this green sky, it's going to take all those pixels and recreate clouds to replace the woman. So the more sample you have, the more pixels that Photoshop has. So this is a good thing that we have a nice big sky to sample. It's going to do a great job at replacing the woman. So this is our selection that's going to be replaced. You can see a preview right here on the right side, so you can see kind of what your actions are doing. If you ever wanted to change the sample, you can cut into your sample and you can add back into your sample. Same thing with the selection. You could deselect and add new parts of the woman by just going to the lasso tool, adding or subtracting from your selection. So I like that preview. It's a pretty good preview. What we're going to do here is go down to Output Settings. Just make sure it's on a new layer. You can do on the current layer and it'll fuse with the layer beneath and she'll be gone forever. Or if you do a new layer, it'll be a new layer on top and she'll still be hiding below. So let's do a new layer and click on OK. So it's going to work its magic, and just like that, she's absolutely gone. So everything inside the selection was auto-filled by Photoshop's Content Aware algorithm. See how good it did of a job of continuing that cloud right here in this area? It's a very brilliant tool. So now we have it on a separate layer. So if we ever wanted to move this away, we have her right there. So it's great for non-destructive editing. If you ever wanted to keep that original photo intact, just do your Content Aware tool. Keep going with this, but let's get a tiny bit more complicated and have some texture involved. So we have all these windows that need to be removed, or we'll select a couple of windows to remove. So we're going to go down here and there's a couple different ways we can do this. We can even just select the window, just like we did before. Go up to Edit, Fill, and there's a Content Aware Fill option in the Fill category. Right up here, it's a drop-down option, Content Aware. It's just a little bit of a quicker way if we have a very simple sample that we want to do. So click OK. It replaces it. We could also do what we did in the prior video. We can also do what we did in the prior project and go to Edit, Content Aware Fill. It's going to bring up our sampling, and it went ahead and deselected some of these windows for us, which is really smart of Photoshop to think about. So we don't have to deselect these windows. We don't want windows to be filled in this area. We want it to only sample the texture, this nice clean texture. So here's a sample of what it's going to look like. We can do it on the new layer, we could do it on a current layer. Let's go ahead and click on OK. And just like that. So let's say we want to remove multiple windows. So let's remove this one, just kind of selecting it with the lasso tool. I'm going to hold down Shift and maybe let's remove this one. So now we have both selected, and we can go to Edit, make sure our base layer is selected. We're going to go up to Edit, content aware fill, and it's going to fill in both of the windows really easily. We're going to click on OK, and both of those windows are just absolutely gone. Let's say you have something a little bit more tricky. So we have the shadowing here. It's going to be hard to remove this window and replicate that shadow. Let's see what the content aware fill. Let's see what the content aware tool does. So let's select our window. We want to get rid of that window. Go to Edit, Content Aware Fill. And that's kind of the job it does. Let's see if I can't zoom in here so you can see. We can move our windows here to get a better accurate view. So this is kind of the sample it created. It looks a little wonky. You can tell there's been some Photoshop effects applied to that. So we can see if we can't maybe narrow the sampling down to get a better effect. So this is the sample that they have. They kind of missed out on that. So let's see if we can't click up here to our sampling brush tool and add to our selection. Just adding a little bit more of that to see if it does a better job. Just kind of filling in little areas here. We can deselect, looks like it's taking a sample of this pipe and it's replicating that. So let's see if we can't subtract that from the sample. Make it a smaller size. We don't want to include that pipe anywhere. So if we remove the pipe from the sampling, let's see if it helps. Absolutely, it helped a little bit. But it's not going to be perfect because this is very geometric and Photoshop doesn't know that. So we're going to have to do some things by hand afterwards, and that's okay. So let's click on OK. That has now disappeared. We have all these on different layers, but if we ever wanted to sit there and do the clone tool and do some more detailed work, it wouldn't be the worst thing of the world if you need to merge all your layers to kind of make it a lot easier on you. So let's at least merge this layer that we just created. I'm going to do Command E to quick merge of those layers, or you can right click merge. So now this is when, okay, the content aware tool is not doing an accurate job, but that's okay. We have a spot healing brush tool we could use, which is right over here. This is your spot healing brush tool, which basically is similar to the clone tool or similar to the content aware tool, but you can brush it on. So let's see if we can't brush that away. And you can't really select with this tool. It's going to select everything around it as a sample. You can't control the selection like you can with a content aware tool. It's going to automatically just sample what's around it. So it's really good for a pimple or a mole or something really quick you need to get rid of, like let's say this pole, and there's a lot of great samples that exist around it. That's when that tool really comes in handy. So for this, we're going to need to go back to the old school tool, the clone tool. So let's see if we can't select this out. And let's grab our trusty clone tool. Every version of Photoshop will have this tool. It goes way back. You don't have to have a new version. We're going to hold down Option to take a sample. So let's take a sample nearby. So we could take a sample right here. And since we have this selected, it'll go on pretty smooth. So just kind of correcting that error, we can go back here. And we're just manually kind of recreating this little complex geometric shape using samples. So let's take the clone tool. Let's see if we can't sample something right up here. Let's do a new layer so we can rotate this. So I'm creating that railing. But since it's on its own layer, I can rotate this now. So I can rotate it so it's right about there. So now we just have that little railing. So now we can go back, and this is really complicated, but this is probably one of the harder parts you would have to do. So let's go to our original layer here. We need to get, that's a part of the original photo that we didn't use the content aware tool for that. So let's just take the spot healing brush tool. That'll be a quick way to do like really small areas. That did a pretty good job. So you can see how you can rebuild really complex objects by using the clone tool, selecting objects out, creating a new layer. That's kind of the only way to do things if we would have to go back and replicate this banister. So in this case, let's take this whole area. Just drawing a box around this. We're going to take this whole area. We are going to copy and paste on a new layer. and kind of replicate it and paste it that way. So there's a lot of different ways we can do this. We're going to have to match it up, and we can get the layering mask and kind of paint all this away. Now we're getting pretty darn close. It can get pretty complicated, but you can see how we rebuilt that. So when you zoom out, there's a little area there that we can go back and fine tune. But outside of that, it really looks pretty realistic. Everything is gone. All those windows are gone. And so that was a little bit more of a complicated version. You're not going to always run across something that complicated. But sometimes when you have stairs and you need to remove somebody from stairs, it's really hard to reproduce that perspective, especially if the stairs are at a different perspective. So you would use this to rebuild, doing clone tools, content aware fill tools, to really get that realistic replacement.